Something quiet but meaningful is already beginning to form around you, even if nothing obvious seems to be happening yet. It isn't dramatic or forced, and it doesn't carry the energy of obsession or illusion, but rather a steady, unspoken curiosity that is slowly building in the background. There is someone who has come across your presence in a way that stayed with them longer than expected, not in a loud or immediate way, but in small impressions that kept returning without invitation. Certain moments, even brief ones, replay in their mind more often than they understand, not because those moments were extraordinary on the surface, but because something about your presence felt different to them in a way they cannot easily define. What makes this feeling more complex for them is that it isn't impulsive. It carries a kind of emotional weight they did not anticipate. They are not rushing toward anything, nor are they trying to force meaning onto what they feel. Instead, they are sitting with it, trying to understand why your presence feels strangely grounding, as though it brings a sense of clarity to thoughts they usually struggle to organize. You may not notice anything changing from your side, but from theirs, there is a quiet process unfolding, where they are carefully considering how to approach you in a way that feels natural, respectful, and unintrusive. They are thinking before acting, observing before speaking, and slowly gathering the confidence to step forward without disturbing your space. It is not about urgency, but about intention forming over time. Something about you has left an impression that doesn't fade easily, and they are beginning to realize that what they feel is not meant to be ignored, but understood with patience and honesty as it gradually becomes clearer to them. They admire the way you carry yourself, the way you listen without trying to control, and the way your silence sometimes says more than words ever could. This younger soul is not drawn to you for surface reasons, but for the calm strength they sense when you are near, even from a distance. They feel that being close to you would not just be exciting, but transformative, as if time would slow down and allow them to understand themselves better. They imagine conversations that last longer than expected, shared moments that feel warm rather than rushed, and an emotional closeness that feels rare in a world full of noise. What they truly want is not something reckless, but something meaningful that feels real and mutual. They are afraid of misreading the situation, afraid of crossing a line, and afraid of losing the quiet connection they already feel, which is why they are waiting and watching. Every delay, every pause, only makes their anticipation grow stronger. What you do not see yet is how carefully this person is observing the small details about you. They notice your mood shifts, your energy on certain days, and the moments when you seem distant or reflective. They feel an urge to be there for you, even though they have not yet earned that place in your life. This is not about crossing boundaries, but about building trust in their own heart before stepping forward. They are learning patience through you, learning restraint, and learning that real connection does not need force. At times, they pull back intentionally, testing whether the feeling fades, but it never does. Instead, it becomes clearer, calmer, and more focused. They sense that when the moment finally arrives, it will not feel awkward or rushed, but natural, as if it was always meant to unfold this way. This is why the energy between you feels charged, even if nothing has been said yet. There is also a reason this connection feels delayed, as if life itself is holding its breath. You are in a phase where clarity matters more than chaos, and this younger person senses that. They do not want to arrive when you are distracted or uncertain, because what they feel deserves your full awareness. They are waiting for the right emotional timing, not just an opportunity. In quiet moments, they imagine a future conversation where honesty flows easily and where the unspoken tension finally finds words. They believe that when that moment happens, it will feel less like a confession and more like a mutual realization. This anticipation is shaping them, making them more mature, more self-aware, and more intentional than they were before. You may feel a strange sense of expectation lately, as if something meaningful is approaching without a clear shape. That feeling, is not random, and it is not coincidence. What makes this revelation powerful is that it is not meant to overwhelm you, but to prepare you. The connection that is forming is not about imbalance or control, but about shared curiosity and emotional depth. When this younger person finally steps closer, it will not be dramatic or disruptive, but surprisingly calm, as if the universe itself cleared the space for that interaction. You will recognize the sincerity in their eyes and the respect in their words, and you will understand why this moment could not arrive sooner. This is not about rushing toward an outcome, but about acknowledging a connection that has already been growing quietly. Something meaningful is aligning for you, and when it reveals itself fully, you will realize that the waiting was part of the design. My beloved child, as this energy continues to unfold, you must understand that what is approaching you is not accidental, but carefully aligned with your emotional readiness. This younger soul is becoming more aware of what they feel each passing day, and instead of fading, their clarity is sharpening. They are realizing that their interest in you is not fleeting admiration, but a deep pull toward understanding you on a level that feels rare and honest. They are questioning themselves, not because they doubt you, but because they want to approach you with integrity and emotional intelligence. In their private moments, they imagine what it would feel like to sit across from you, not speaking immediately, simply sharing space, sensing the unspoken connection between two people who feel something genuine. They are not driven by impulse, but by a desire to connect in a way that feels respectful, balanced, and emotionally safe. This is why their energy feels steady rather than chaotic, focused rather than scattered. There are moments when this person almost reaches out, almost takes a step forward, but then pauses, not out of fear, but out of awareness. They know that timing matters, and that true connection cannot be rushed without losing its meaning. They are learning to read the silence between moments, understanding that sometimes waiting is an act of care. What you may notice is a subtle shift in your own thoughts, a sense of curiosity about someone you cannot fully place, or a feeling that someone is thinking of you more often than you realize. What is unfolding here feels less like imagination and more like a quiet emotional alignment, taking shape over time. Their thoughts are not scattered or impulsive, but steady, intentional, and gently hopeful. They are not placing expectations on you, or trying to force an outcome that isn't ready to exist yet. Instead, they are holding space for possibility, with the simple hope that if and when your paths align more closely, there will be a sense of natural understanding between you both. In their mind, connection is not something that needs to be rushed or proven, but something that reveals itself gradually through comfort and mutual ease. Rather than feeling anxious about the uncertainty, they are learning to sit with it in a calmer and more grounded way, allowing patience to replace urgency. This process is quietly shaping their emotional maturity, helping them understand that real closeness is not built through intensity, but through consistency, respect, and emotional awareness. Without consciously trying, your presence in their thoughts is encouraging them to become more thoughtful in how they perceive relationships and how they express themselves. They are beginning to value sincerity over performance and steadiness over impression. In their imagination, closeness with you is not overwhelming or chaotic, but peaceful and balanced, something that would bring clarity rather than confusion. They picture simple moments that feel natural rather than constructed, where conversation flows easily, silence feels comfortable instead of awkward, and emotional safety replaces hesitation. This isn't about creating an idealized fantasy, but about recognizing the kind of connection that feels emotionally grounded and authentic. At the same time, there is a subtle shift that may also be reflected within you, where emotional openness begins to grow quietly, without a clear reason. It is less about external influence and more about two emotional states gradually moving toward a more receptive and understanding space, shaped by patience, awareness, and a growing sense of calm recognition. This is because the energy between you is already interacting, even if you have not acknowledged it consciously. Life has a way of preparing the heart before revealing the reason. This younger person feels that when they finally speak, it will not feel like an intrusion, but like a continuation of something that already exists. They are aware that you value depth over surface interactions, and this understanding guides their restraint. They do not want to approach you as someone seeking attention, but as someone offering genuine presence. This awareness sets them apart from others and makes this connection feel different from anything you have experienced before. What is coming is not meant to disrupt your life, but to add a layer of meaning you did not realize was missing. When the moment arrives, it will feel calm, respectful, and emotionally clear, as if both of you intuitively understand what is unfolding. You will recognize that this connection was never about age, timing, or circumstance, but about alignment and emotional truth. The reason it feels so powerful now is because it is still forming, still pure, and still guided by intention rather than impulse. Stay aware of your emotions, because what is approaching you carries the potential to open a new chapter built on mutual respect, curiosity, and emotional depth. This is only the beginning of what is slowly, carefully, and meaningfully making its way toward you. My beloved child, what you are sensing now is the quiet pressure of inevitability, the feeling that something meaningful is moving closer, no matter how calmly life appears on the surface. This younger person is no longer confused about what they feel, but they are becoming deliberate about how they handle it. They are realizing that this connection deserves patience, clarity, and honesty, not haste. In their thoughts, you are not a mystery to solve, but a presence to respect. They are asking themselves how to show interest without disturbing your peace, how to be present without demanding attention, and how to speak without forcing a response. This level of care is rare, and it is growing stronger with each passing day. They are not waiting for permission from the world, but for alignment within themselves. Quiet moments are becoming louder for them, because your presence keeps returning to their mind without invitation. They imagine your reactions, your pauses, and the way you might listen more than you speak. They are learning that what draws them to you is not intensity, but balance. This realization changes how they move through their own life, making them more aware of their actions and intentions. They want to arrive in your space as someone who adds value, not noise. You may notice subtle signs around you, repeated thoughts, familiar emotions resurfacing, or a calm anticipation that feels different from excitement. These are not distractions, but signals that something sincere is forming beneath the surface. There is also a deeper truth unfolding that you may not yet see clearly. This connection is challenging old patterns for both of you, asking you to slow down, to feel, and to trust without rushing toward conclusions. They are learning that attraction does not have to be loud to be real, and you are learning that meaningful connections often arrive quietly. The younger person is becoming more grounded, more intentional, and more emotionally aware because they sense that you would recognize authenticity immediately. They do not want to arrive unprepared, because what they feel deserves respect. This preparation is shaping them into someone stronger than they were before this connection began. At the same time, your own emotional awareness is sharpening, even if you cannot explain why. You may feel more reflective, more selective about who you allow into your inner space, and more aware of subtle energies around you. This is because your intuition is adjusting to something new that is approaching. The connection ahead is not meant to confuse you, but to clarify what truly matters. When the moment finally arrives, it will not feel sudden, even if it appears unexpected. It will feel like recognition, as if your awareness simply catches up with what has already been unfolding. What matters most now is not action, but awareness. This younger person is closer than you realize, emotionally aligned, even if physically distant. They are not rushing toward a moment. because they trust that when the timing is right, the connection will speak for itself. When you finally notice them clearly, you will understand why everything unfolded this way. This chapter is still writing itself, slowly and intentionally, building toward a moment that will feel calm, sincere, and unmistakably real. My beloved child, now the energy between you and this younger person begins to shift from silent awareness into quiet readiness, the kind that does not announce itself, but can be felt if you slow down enough to notice. They are no longer only observing from a distance, because something inside them has settled into certainty. This certainty is calm, respectful, and deeply intentional. They are preparing themselves emotionally, not to impress you, but to meet you where you are, without masks or expectations. In their mind, they are rehearsing honesty, not lines. It describes a gradual emotional process, where someone may begin to reflect on how interest can be expressed without pressure, how curiosity can stay respectful, and how connections often develop more naturally when they are not forced or rushed. Rather than being driven by anxiety or confusion, this perspective comes from a calmer and more balanced awareness of emotions and personal boundaries. Over time, it can shape a person into someone more patient, who understands that meaningful connection is something to notice and appreciate rather than chase quickly. There is a growing emphasis on attentiveness, being aware of timing, tone, and the natural flow of interactions, not as a strategy, but simply as a thoughtful way of relating to others. They may become more mindful of comfort levels and communication styles, especially when valuing sincerity, depth, and clarity. Instead of assuming meanings or moving ahead too quickly, there is often a tendency to pause, reflect, and respond more carefully. On the other side, a person might occasionally notice shifts in awareness or subtle emotional impressions during interactions, though these are typically just natural human sensitivity, rather than anything unusual or significant. Such moments are generally quiet, gradual, and non-disruptive. Over time, this creates a softer, more grounded way of relating, where curiosity can exist without pressure, and understanding can develop through steady, respectful interaction, rather than expectation or urgency. You may feel less interested in shallow exchanges, and more drawn to interactions that feel genuine and grounded. This shift is not coincidence, but alignment. The connection ahead is asking you to remain present, rather than distracted, open, rather than guarded. When this younger person steps forward, it will not feel like an interruption, but like a continuation of a conversation that began without words. The calmness you feel now is part of that preparation, allowing you to receive what is approaching with clarity rather than surprise. What unfolds next will not be rushed, and it will not feel overwhelming. It will feel like understanding arriving at the right pace. This connection is not built on intensity, but on emotional steadiness and respect. When awareness becomes mutual, you will recognize the care behind their approach and the sincerity behind their presence. Everything leading to this moment has been intentional, shaping both of you quietly and patiently. This chapter is nearing a point of gentle revelation, one that will feel natural, grounded, and deeply meaningful when it finally steps into the open. My beloved child, the moment you have been unconsciously preparing for is drawing closer, and it carries a clarity that will feel calm rather than dramatic. This younger person has reached a point where waiting has taught them enough, and now understanding is guiding their next step. They are no longer questioning whether this connection is real, but how to honor it properly. Their intention is simple and sincere, to allow closeness to form naturally, without pressure or expectation. They are aware that what they feel deserves honesty, patience, and emotional balance. This awareness gives their presence a quiet confidence, one that does not demand attention, but naturally invites it. When you finally sense this shift clearly, it will feel like the air itself has changed, subtle yet undeniable. What makes this moment powerful is that it does not arrive with noise, but with recognition. You may notice a calm awareness settling in your thoughts, as if something suddenly makes sense without explanation. This is because your intuition is aligning with what has been unfolding behind the scenes. The connection ahead is not meant to surprise you, but to feel familiar, as if you have already met it in another form. This younger person is not approaching you to fill a void, but to share a space of mutual curiosity and emotional presence. They are ready to listen as much as they speak, to understand as much as they reveal. This balance is what gives the connection its strength. There is also a sense of emotional safety forming around this connection, one that allows openness without vulnerability feeling risky. You may feel more at ease expressing your true thoughts, even before any conversation takes place. This is because the energy between you is grounded in respect, rather than urgency. They are not trying to rush toward a label or outcome, but to allow understanding to grow step by step. This approach creates trust before words are exchanged, making the eventual interaction feel natural and unforced. The patience shown here is not hesitation, but care. As awareness becomes mutual, the connection begins to feel less like anticipation and more like arrival. You may recognize their sincerity in small gestures, thoughtful pauses, or the way they remain present without overwhelming you. This is where curiosity turns into understanding, and understanding turns into quiet closeness. The younger person feels ready now, not because the feeling has intensified, but because it has settled into clarity. They know that whatever unfolds next will be shaped by honesty and mutual respect. This readiness is not about certainty of outcome, but certainty of intention. What happens next will feel steady and grounded, like a door opening rather than being pushed. You will sense that this connection was never meant to be rushed, only recognized at the right time. When the moment finally arrives, it will feel calm, sincere, and unmistakably real. This is not an ending, but a beginning shaped by patience, awareness, and emotional truth. Everything that has unfolded so far has prepared you for this point, where curiosity becomes connection and presence becomes meaningful closeness. This describes a moment where emotions and intentions begin to feel clearer and more settled, not in a dramatic way, but through a gradual sense of internal readiness. A person may reach a point where they are no longer uncertain about whether to act on what they feel, but instead become more focused on how to express themselves in a thoughtful and respectful manner. The emphasis shifts from hesitation to clarity, where actions are guided more by calm understanding than by impulse. What changes here is not intensity, but direction, as thoughts start aligning more naturally with intention and responsibility. When someone reaches this kind of internal alignment, their approach tends to become more measured and considerate, especially in how they communicate and respond to others. At the same time, the other person involved in any interaction may become more aware of subtle emotional cues, noticing details they previously overlooked, not because of any external force, but simply due to increased attentiveness and reflection. This can create a sense that interactions feel slightly more meaningful or noticeable, even in ordinary moments. However, this is best understood as a natural shift in perception and emotional awareness, rather than something predetermined or symbolic. In such situations, there is often a quieter form of connection developing, one that is based on presence, mutual respect, and a willingness to understand rather than rush outcomes. It encourages slowing down, observing how communication feels on both sides, and allowing clarity to emerge through genuine interaction instead of assumption. Over time, this can lead to a more grounded and sincere way of relating, where both individuals feel more conscious of tone, timing, and emotional comfort, without needing anything exaggerated or forced. This feeling is subtle, but it carries weight, because it is rooted in intention rather than desire. The younger person is now ready to be seen for who they truly are, not as someone seeking approval, but as someone offering authenticity. They are aware that real closeness begins with honesty, and they are prepared to show that without expectations. Their respect for your emotional space remains strong, and this respect shapes how they move toward you. They are not trying to impress or persuade, but to connect in a way that feels mutual and balanced. This approach allows trust to form naturally, without pressure. When sincerity leads, understanding follows. At this stage, the connection begins to feel less like anticipation and more like presence. You may feel a sense of calm acceptance, as if you are ready to receive whatever unfolds without fear or hesitation. This readiness does not come from certainty of outcome, but from confidence in your own emotional clarity. The interaction ahead is not meant to disrupt your life, but to add depth to it. It arrives gently, respecting your pace and honoring your awareness. This is how meaningful connections grow. Quietly, steadily, and with purpose. What unfolds next will feel aligned rather than forced, clear rather than confusing. You will recognize that everything leading to this moment was necessary, shaping both of you in ways you could not see at the time. The connection now stands at the edge of expression, ready to move from silence into shared understanding. When that happens, it will feel natural, grounded, and sincere. This is the power of patience meeting intention, and it marks the beginning of something that carries depth, respect, and emotional truth. My beloved child. At this stage, silence no longer feels empty. It feels full, as if something meaningful is holding its breath right before revealing itself. The younger person senses this too, and instead of rushing, they are choosing presence over haste. They understand now that true closeness is not announced, it is felt, and that what is forming between you does not need urgency to be real. Their awareness has deepened to the point where they can sense your emotional rhythm, knowing when to step closer and when to simply remain steady. This level of sensitivity did not exist in them before, but it has grown because of this connection. They are no longer driven by curiosity alone, but by respect and emotional clarity. You may feel a subtle calm settling into your thoughts, as if certain doubts are losing their grip. This calm is important because it creates space for recognition rather than reaction. You are not being pushed toward anything, but gently guided toward awareness. The energy around you feels less scattered and more focused, as if distractions are falling away on their own. This is because something sincere is nearing the surface, asking to be acknowledged without pressure. The connection ahead does not demand change, but it invites understanding. When something invites rather than demands, it carries a different kind of power. The younger person is now prepared to meet you without expectations, knowing that whatever unfolds must be mutual to be meaningful. They are no longer imagining outcomes, but focusing on presence, trust, and honest expression. Their thoughts appear steadier and more intentional, with a grounded approach that prioritizes sincerity over performance or dramatization. There is a growing preference for interactions that feel natural and unforced, where communication can unfold without pressure or artificial structure. This kind of emotional readiness often supports a healthier balance between curiosity and personal boundaries, allowing individuals to feel more aware of what feels comfortable and what does not. As clarity increases, it becomes easier to recognize genuine intent in others without overthinking or second-guessing every signal. Instead of confusion, there is a more stable sense of discernment developing, where emotional responses feel clearer and more organized internally. In such a state, interactions tend to feel more respectful and less overwhelming, as both sides become more conscious of tone, timing, and mutual comfort. This does not imply certainty about outcomes, but rather a shift in how experiences are perceived and processed. Over time, curiosity can evolve into something more meaningful simply because it is handled with patience and emotional awareness, not urgency. What matters most in this kind of dynamic is the emphasis on calm communication and authentic presence, rather than expectations or assumptions about what may happen next. When people operate from this level of clarity, their interactions often become more thoughtful and less reactive, creating space for understanding to develop naturally through real engagement rather than imagined outcomes or pressure.